first thing you want to do is make sure all of these angles are pre-folded so that it can just sit in the position that you want it to without too much pressure from the patches. And try to make sure this, especially this bottom part, is flat. The top isn't usually too much of an issue, and these other parts are fairly short, so they shouldn't be of an issue. Next thing you want to do for attaching it to itself is to round here using a bamboo skewer. Just set the bamboo skewer behind the side of the turret here and just kind of roll it back and forth to start the rounding process underneath it. And then you want to round it quite a bit in this section where these red lines are. And then round the bottom, but not the top, all the way along. So it's a little bit more difficult, but you can see like the bottom part here is rounded. So you need to have this rounded all the way along, just like that. So keep working it. You kind of want to over round it a little bit to get it to sit in the shape you want it to when you're ready to attach it. And same thing for the other side. Just start rolling the skewer back and forth here. You want to, most of the rounding of it, or the angle, is at the top, right where these red lines are. And then just continue the rounding process the whole way across the bottom again. So the rounding's fairly consistent across the bottom, but it's mostly in that one spot at the top. Once you have that, then you're going to fold those out of the way a little bit so they don't get in the way. And we're going to make this front connection first, and that will guide us through the rest of the turret creation process. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach a patch to here. So take some 4-to-1 glue, 4 glue, 1 water, and just throw a thin layer on there because we want this to dry as quickly as possible so we can just press on with the creation process. Get that attached on there. And we'll fold this over. You're just going to test fit it. Make sure these 2 front corners fit up nice and flush. You want to make sure that they get that when you're doing the main gluing process. So what we're going to do, now that we're assured that that is going to go into the correct position, so we're going to put a little bit of glue just right here on the top of the bottom of the turret. Fold this back a little bit, and then place that down and make sure your corners are in place. And basically you put your thumb against the front of the lower portion of the turret and slide the top down onto it rather than meeting them corner to corner like we did before. Make sure those corners are nice and lined up, and then you're going to slide some glue under here. And you probably don't need to, but you can sort of pull the patch to tighten it down and then fold that over. And that should create a nice tight bond there. So, just going to give that a second to set, and it won't take long. The next connections we're going to do are these front corners. So we're going to just set it like that. Make sure that kind of meeting these nice and flush on the front. It's most important right now. throw a layer of glue across both angles. Get it into the gaps if you can, especially if those gaps are large at all. And keep in mind, you want to keep your fingers out of the way, so you don't want to let it go in order to put this patch down. And then just fold the patch over, and you should have a nice front connection. So I'll just do the other side quickly. Same thing. Try to get a nice fit. Oh, this finger is going to be in the way here if I don't move it over. There we go. Nice fit. Put the glue down in the creases between and along these sides. Make that connection. Now we can move towards the rear. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to fit this back in nicely on the top. So if you can get this corner here to match nicely, just hold it in place. I need to move this thumb a little bit out of the way. There we go. Again, filling the gap between the parts that you're gluing with glue only helps make the connection stronger. Take a small patch. Hopefully that will hold. Okay. Now this has had a moment to dry. I'm going to just cut this back. Get that out of our way. And have a look at how this needs to go together. So we're going to just put tighten everything up evenly. Put some glue on there. Lay the patch on there. And then again, you can kind of do that, if you need to, do that tightening trick where you lay the glue on the bottom. It's pretty nice connections on this particular model, but you can pull the side in by putting some pressure on the patch as you glue it down. So if there are gaps here, you can close them that way. Okay, let's remove this as well. It's not getting in my way. Attach this other back piece. So again, just pushing it into a good position. Trying to just hold it there with your thumb, and then back your fingers off until you're sure you have enough room for your patch. Lay down the glue. better to put glue on both surfaces before you attempt to put the patch down. That way you don't have to let anything go. Okay, and then just make sure everything's nice and tight down here. And it's a good idea just to patch it anyways, even if things are nicely set. Just to hold them there. That begins the turret creation process. I'm just going to take us a little bit further along that road. We're going to take this gun mount part. This is the bottom. So this is the top of the gun mount and this is the bottom. We're going to take our bamboo skewer and we're just going to roll this. And I would start out very gently, just rolling slowly the skewer along it. Then once you start to get a feel like it is sort of changing shape the whole way, then you want to start to do the majority of the folding toward the bottom. So you're kind of creating a teardrop shape. And you may, or almost assuredly actually, for the bottom part anyways, you're going to get some de-lamination, and it actually changes the shape of the cardboard as you're trying to glue this in place. So sometimes it's a good idea to take a pair of scissors and the parts that are coming off. Now if you want, you can even like kind of purposely delaminate it a little bit. You don't need it at full thickness. It's actually a little bit easier if it's just a thin piece. So it's not a bad idea to just strip off that part. Just be very gentle with this while you're doing the rounding process, because it's easy to mash this very small and thin, delicate piece. As an alternative, you could use the thicker part at the bottom too. This one's a little bit thicker. But just for uniformity, I'm going to use the template version. And so what you're going to do when you install it is you're going to install it on this blue box. And when you have it in place, you want to be able to see just the edges of the blue lines on either side. So the bottom of the teardrop is toward the bottom also of the turret. Try to set it in place. And then, especially if it's thin like this, you can kind of adjust its shape later. If it's still maintaining its full thickness, like you haven't stripped it apart, then it can be a little bit more of a challenge to change its shape once it's installed, and you want to make sure it installs in the right shape. But regardless, you want to have it glued to the right places, even if its shape is a little bit off. So I need to move this. You want it to come in and attach almost at a 90-degree angle to the angle of the turret.